We have a lot of announcements today. In the first segment that deals primarily with print publishing, we're announcing the new product InDesign, also Press Ready, and Acrobat 4. All of this started about 4.5 years ago with a multiple number of initiatives that we started taking very, very seriously within Adobe Engineering. One concern of ours was that the products were somewhat independent of each other. PageMaker had its own way of doing things, Illustrator had its own way of doing things, Photoshop had its own way of doing things. And there were differences in these products that made their interoperability, in some sense, cumbersome. So we started a major initiative to really make the user interfaces of all of the products converge, so that they had common tool palettes, they had common ways of providing shortcuts, they had common ways of filtering files in and going out of the products. And so, as you've noticed as users, Illustrator and Photoshop have started to look more and more similar in the ways that they do things. And so, as you move from product to product, you don't have to do this mental mind shift and say, ask yourself, what product am I in? Another initiative we started was to get the common imaging model and the common code base for handling type and handling the way graphics are dealt with to be consistent across all the products, to be consistent across Photoshop and Illustrator, across Premiere and After Effects, and to a certain extent, to the extent possible, even try to fit some of that attribute into PageMaker, although the code base on PageMaker was difficult to work with at that time. About 4.5 years ago, we started an architecture activity to do a ground-up rewrite of page making, of page layout software. And this new page layout software was going to be the best architecture that we could put together, was going to be the most modular architecture we could put together, the most extensible architecture together. And today we're announcing InDesign, which is a culmination of this incredible effort. But the thing that you're going to notice about InDesign is that the user interface is very, very familiar. It's very much like Illustrator. You'll see a lot of tools that it has in common with Illustrator and the ability to manipulate curves. You'll see the way files are handled, that they can be handled directly from Photoshop and Illustrator. You don't have to go through EPS. You can import all the layers from Photoshop, import all the layers from Illustrator directly into InDesign and manipulate them. You sort of go back and forth seamlessly between the products. And this is because of this incredible architecture that we've put together under InDesign. Literally, InDesign is a core set of capabilities involving the imaging model, involving the type handling, involving sort of the architecture for communication between plugins. Everything else in InDesign is a plugin, including the user interfaces, the file import and export features. All of the tools and the way that they work together are essentially a series of plugins that have been incredibly carefully designed to work seamlessly together to provide an incredible publishing and creative experience. InDesign is so open that developers essentially have access through the APIs to 90% of the functionality inside of the program. From AppleScript and from Visual Basic, you have access to about 80% of the functionality. So you as developers or integrators or specialists within a particular publishing environment can automate many activities that were impossible to automate in the past. You can set up your workflows so that they're very streamlined. We can get third parties, and you'll see some examples today of third parties who have already build plugins into the InDesign framework and are going to be showcasing those at the show. We started working with customers about a year ago, and we started providing developer kitchens to a wide variety of developers to start work then, so that today, when today arrived, there would be lots and lots of third-party activity around the product. We think that this is a platform for the next century. The code base is extremely modular, extremely flexible, extremely robust. And the customers that have used this product, we think, really have tuned in to what it can do, and we're very excited to show it to you. So I would like to turn the podium over to Mark, and Mark will show you InDesign.
Thanks, John. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a ton of great stuff to show you, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So what we'll do here is open up a folder with demo files, and first start off with an Express document. Simply drag and drop it on top of the InDesign application, and we have conversion of your documents, including old master pages with styles and with grids and guides will automatically be retained when you bring it into Adobe InDesign. Now, of course, as soon as you see the page here, the interface is probably familiar to a lot of you. We have the swatches palette, we have the famous navigator from Photoshop and Illustrator. We even have a layers palette for putting elements on different layers. What I'm going to do here is just show you some of the cool things we can do. For example, with type, simply select this text, and I can click over here on my swatch and turn it into an outline with a fill. So graphically treat this text, and notice that it's still nicely anti-aliased, and I can still edit it very easily without any problem, even though it's been anti-aliased that way. What else I can do with text is very simple. I can convert them to outlines. If I take my type palette, it's actually in the same menu, the same position as Illustrator. So for those of you who use Illustrator, you'll be very familiar with this. Convert the text to outlines, and this creates some frames that I can then place images. So nested images, nested frames. So let's go ahead and place an image in this. We'll bring up a picture here that'll be placed automatically inside. So if we want to give the gentleman a little frontal do here. You like that? You got to let me know when you like something, okay? Okay, cool. All right, so we can do something, really neat creative things like that with InDesign. Also with the text here, I can select a paragraph, and to create a runaround, I don't have to access many dialog boxes. Just take the pen tool that you're familiar with and just as an Illustrator user and drag it over and just create a wraparound like you want. Move it around, use the pointer tool. It's that simple to create a runaround with Adobe InDesign. All right, let's close this document up here and bring up another one. We're going to talk a little bit about integration over here. And this is going to be talking about integration with Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. And what I have is a spread for a magazine called In Gear, and they're focusing an article this week on the glasses company. So what we're going to do is bring in an a Photoshop file to start with. We'll place this, a Photoshop file, and it's a native Photoshop file. I don't have to bring in a CMYK TIFF or whatever. Native Photoshop file, as John said before, with layers intact, but also intact will be, here we go, clipping path. Right in with the application, we will bring the clipping path from Photoshop. Now the cool part is, if there's an error in that clipping path, and unfortunately there is one here, you don't have to go back to Adobe Photoshop. Simply take the Bezier and fix it with Adobe InDesign. You like that one? That's pretty cool integration. I like to show you also even better integration thanks to the Adobe imaging model with Adobe Illustrator. Let's switch over to Illustrator over here. And we have a pair of vector glasses. These are glasses that were created with Illustrator, so there's no bitmaps here, it's all vector. And I can simply copy and paste. Now, because, just to show you we're not doing this with smoke and mirrors, I'll use the menus. Copy, go back to InDesign, and then I will paste these glasses, and it's importing the Illustrator objects. We can now resize it down and position it anywhere we'd like. Notice I've got some transparency happening because there's no fill on the glasses, and actually thanks to the imaging model, try and do this with EPS, zoom in and see it high res after we place it in InDesign. Would you like to make some modifications to this file that came in as an Illustrator file? Maybe add a cool blend to the shades? There you go. Directly within Adobe InDesign. That one's cool. So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about third-party integration with this product. We'll switch over to another page, and John was telling you about how third-party plugin developers are able to provide a lot of functionality to Adobe InDesign. And I'd like to highlight one of these right now, and that's, for example, for table editing, table support. This is a nice table that was created with a plugin from our friends at Power Tools. If you take a look at the menu here, we have the Power Table application. We can launch that very quickly and see a very sophisticated table creation application that works with InDesign, and it works today. And we're shipping just this summer. So it shows you the openness, the true openness of this program to be able to create sophisticated tables, different colors, of course, fonts, nested images, and we're even looking at providing this plugin will have ability to export to EPS or even HTML. So it's a very powerful plugin that's available for Adobe InDesign as of today. So what we're going to do now is talk a little more about third-party integration through AppleScript and bring up also the ability to work with master pages and sub-master pages with Adobe InDesign. And this is very key for catalog publishers. Let me explain a little bit what we're going to do here. I'm going to take this master page and I'm going to simply duplicate it by dragging it to my duplication icon here, which is, again, very familiar to those of you working with products like Photoshop or Illustrator. And we're going to, with the menu, select Master Options. And I will tell InDesign that I want to base this master on the first master, Master A. So let's go ahead and name this one B so we're not confused. We'll move over here. The master item has very little on it. It's just this color polygon and some information at the top here. We go ahead and make sure I'm on the right page. And we'll get rid of some elements. Now what I've just created here is a sub-master. Master B depends on Master A. And what I'm going to run now is a little AppleScript that will automatically create for me a whole bunch of other masters and change the color automatically on them. So if you're creating a catalog and you'd like to have a different colored section for the different clothing or apparel that you're selling, simply click on the AppleScript and you see the program running through its paces in the back. And it's done now. Let's bring this palette up to the foreground and stretch it out a little bit. And you can see that I have now multiple colored master pages that were automatically created with the script, but they are all based on my first master. These are sub-masters. The cool part about that is if I go to that master page and change my issue from, let's say, spring to summer, and go to the other masters, they reflect that change automatically. So I don't have to go to each master and change things. That's sub-masters in Adobe InDesign. Thank you. All right, what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about typography. So we're going to move over to the PC to show you the cross-platform capabilities of Adobe InDesign. And what we have here is our spread with the same elements placed. And I'm going to zoom in here to a couple of paragraphs that we have prepared for you. There we go. We'll move some things out of the way so everybody can see. And these paragraphs, oh my goodness, look at that. Isn't that cool? Oh, well. The demo nightmare. Okay, well, let's see what we can do about that. That's interesting. Okay, well, let's go back to the Mac. All right, we'll go back to the Mac and go back to our spread here. Oh my goodness, Mother said there'd be days like this. All right, let's zoom in to our text area. And what we're going to do is talk to you a bit about the typographical control in Adobe InDesign. What we have here are two identical columns, one of which, well, right now they're both set to standard kerning that has been possible to do in desktop publishing applications up to now, and that's single line kerning. And what we have that's brand new in Adobe InDesign for publishing applications is the ability to have multi-line composing. And what I mean by that, let me go ahead and just get the pop-up menu here and talk about it a little bit. The multi-line composer will allow you to check the kerning, not on just that one line and get the best fit possible, but it'll also check the lines above and below your problem line to see if it makes some tweaks there, will I get better type treatment, better type overall color for the paragraph. So the multi-line composer is an intelligent algorithm that you can tell it, go look 3 lines before my problem line or 3 lines after, and arrange kerning there so that we end up with the best possible looking paragraph. So all I'll do here is simply select multi-line composer, and you'll see the reflow that happens, and we have a much nicer, a much tighter composition. Now this isn't new. I mean, Gutenberg did it when he printed the first Bible. But for desktop publishing applications, this is brand new. We're very excited about this composition engine. It's extremely powerful. What I'm going to do here also is talk a little bit about drop caps. Within design, it's so simple. We'll select a drop cap over here and tell it to go 4 lines deep. Just type that in, and there it goes. And I'd like to point out one more thing here. I will show you the ability to create optical margin alignments with Adobe InDesign. And the optical margin alignments is more than just hanging punctuations. It'll actually take a look at the glyphs, the ends of each character, and really space them evenly and make sure that we have the best justification possible. I'd like to point out here too, look at the word Sebi on the second line. It starts with a quote. Look at the quote. It's inside the glyph space of the H. That's how precise this type engine is. I think that's really terrific. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you over here is layers. So we're going to bring up our layers window. And redraw that. There we go. And I'd like to bring up a bilingual layer here. So side by side, we now have the English text and now some French text, and we can do this in InDesign for publishing different regions of a country or different countries' multilingual publications. And we can set this as a paragraph style. And the paragraph styles are very powerful in Adobe InDesign. Let me go ahead and choose to the style options over here. There are all kinds of attributes that we can set for a paragraph style, or even have character-based styles. But what I'd like to point out here is in the advanced character formats, you can choose built into the program, no extra hardware necessary, 20 languages, 20 dictionaries. And this will create proper hyphenation, but also appropriate spell checking in the same document, on same layers, different layers. It doesn't matter. It's all right there with Adobe InDesign. All right. So, you like it so far? You want some more? I can demo this one for hours, so I'm going to move right along because they're going to pull the cord on me here. So let's go ahead and go to the last page here and talk a little bit about placing PDF files. We're increasingly getting digital ads as PDF documents. So we're going to go ahead and do that with InDesign here. Place an ad that comes in last minute, like usual. We can show import options. And what's cool about this filter in Adobe InDesign is that if you're sent a multiple page PDF, maybe you have different ads for different regions of the country or different languages, you can just cycle through this. We can crop to the content or crop to the media. Go ahead and place that. And notice the error message. Adobe InDesign's plugin for bringing in PDF has the intelligence to realize at the very outset, at the production stage, that you might have a problem with the font. You don't end up with Courier on film or on your direct-to-plate system before you realize there's an issue. So we have an intelligent parser here that'll actually tell you as soon as you place the PDF that there's an issue. Let's go ahead and place that. And I think I clicked one too many times here. I just have to place it one more time. Skip the import options. Thank you. There we go, and we'll just go ahead and place it there. And what I'd like to showcase here in this ad is that it's not just a picture. Thanks to the Adobe imaging model that John was talking about and the integration of our applications, you can actually, if you want, see what time it is. Let's zoom in on this little watch over here. at 4,000% zoom, and you can tell the time. I think that's just the coolest thing of integration, is being able to really work and not compromise on what you're looking at on the screen and hope it comes out lined up on the image setter when it's maybe a little too late. All right, so now let's talk about, since we're talking about PDF, let's also talk about exporting to PDF. With Adobe InDesign, we have export capabilities to PDF right within the application. No need to go to Distiller, simply select export. We have ability to go HTML through cascading style sheets, but through Adobe PDF, we can go ahead and save it out, and you have all the PDF options built in, and it'll create your press-ready PDF directly within the app without needing to launch Acrobat Distiller. This is good. This is good. You're applauding. This is great. Okay. Now, of course, we always want to end up with printing, and we are introducing today a new product to help you get to the final proof much more quickly. It's called Adobe Press Ready. And Press Ready is a great application for your select color inkjet. What it'll do is give you very, very accurate color comps that have true Adobe PostScript 3 and ICC color management. So you'll be able to get very accurate output from an inkjet printer so that you can get more quickly to the final stages. And the Press Ready will also create Press Ready PDF files. And we are showcasing at the show here the Canon 8500. You should see this terrific inkjet printer. Stop by the booth, make sure that you see the output quality from an inkjet. It's just quite incredible. Of course, on the high-end printing, we have companies such as Cytex, Heidelberg, and AGFA that are showing some very exciting PostScript 3 and PostScript Extreme technology. So make sure that you stop by our OEM partner booths at this show. All right, what I'm going to do now is quit InDesign because we do have other products to show. And while I'm doing that, why don't you let me know, do you like that? Do you like what you saw? Huh? All right. Now, of course, we are showing InDesign in our booth. We're showing it in, I think, about like 10 different booths. You'll see it in action in the workflows at our friends at Apple. Make sure you stop by and see InDesign in action.